When discussing professional wrestling, more than likely WWE in America, Lucha Libre in Mexico, or Strong Style in Japan are your main talking points. But tucked away down under lies a largely forgotten battleground within Australia. A continent known for kangaroos and cricket once housed one of the most vibrant wrestling scenes in the world. This is the story of pro wrestling in Australia, its rise, fall, and modern rebirth. Wrestling arrived in Australia in the early 1900s, blending elements of British catch-as-catch-can and American carnival-style grappling. It wasn't just sport, it was spectacle. Matches were often held in boxing stadiums and music halls, drawing working-class crowds. These early shows featured tours by stars like Clarence Webber, Jack Carkeek, and George Hackenschmidt. By the 1930s and 40s, Australian wrestling was thriving on radio and in the newspapers. Promoters like Stadiums Limited brought in international talent, while local stars like Dick Raines and Chief Little Wolf became household names. The 1960s to 1970s marked Australia's golden age of wrestling. It was largely thanks to one man, Jim Barnett, an American promoter who launched World Championship Wrestling Australia in 1964, not to be confused with the later WCW in the US. Broadcast on Channel 9, WCW Australia brought names like Killer Kowalski, Spiros Arion, and Bruno Sammartino to Aussie TV screens. Locals like Ron Miller and Mario Milano were national heroes. Crowds packed into venues like Festival Hall in Melbourne and Sydney Stadium. Wrestling was family-friendly primetime entertainment. But by the late 1970s, the magic began to fade. Jim Barnett returned to the US, and without his American pipeline and TV deals, the local scene shriveled. And in 1978, WCW Australia was cancelled. The larger-than-life stars vanished, and wrestling was pushed out of mainstream consciousness. For the next 2 decades, Aussie wrestling fell into obscurity, surviving only in small halls and gyms through independent promotions. However, the 2000s brought a new wave. Fueled by passionate fans and wrestlers who grew up watching tape-traded footage and WWE broadcasts, the Australian indie scene began to rise again. Promotions like Melbourne City Wrestling, MCW, Pro Wrestling Australia, PWA, and Riot City Wrestling fostered homegrown talent. With strong training schools, social media exposure, and partnerships with international companies, Aussie wrestling found its feet again. Stars like Buddy Matthews, Rhea Ripley, Tony Storm, Grayson Waller, and Bronson Reed all cut their teeth on the local circuit before making it big overseas. Today, Australian wrestling is in a renaissance. PWA is Sydney's leading pro wrestling company, MCW's packed-out shows at the Thornbury Theatre, and the rise of Aussie wrestlers in AEW, NJPW and WWE are evidence of a movement that's no longer underground. Wrestling in Australia has come full circle, from packed stadiums to near extinction, and now back to a thriving, globally respected scene. And while the road was rough, the resilience of Australian wrestling proves one thing: you can't keep a good fight down. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this short dive into wrestling history, don't forget to like, subscribe, join the Patreon, and comment below. Wrestling's story in Australia is still being written. And who knows, the next global star might be stepping into a ring in Australia right now.